the the real problem with Keir Starmer is that, in fact, the real problem with Ukraine is it seems to bring out people who simply are not um, focused, or who are not committed, whose language is all over the place. Keir Starmer started off by talking about boots on the ground in Ukraine to help the defense of the country. And this evening, he's come out with a slightly different recalibration of Britain's military stance. And while he previously discussed the role of European troops on Ukrainian soil in securing a post-war settlement, his remarks this evening place greater emphasis on air and sea support. I actually agree with him, by the way. But this shift reflects a change in reality and the constraints of Western engagement in Ukraine. And you think, well, why wasn't this what he said originally? Why is there so much shift going on? At a high-level military gathering near London, Starmer underscored the need for Vladimir Putin to understand the severe consequences of breaking a ceasefire, which he's done, by the way. But rather than reinforcing the idea of a multinational ground force, Starmer's rhetoric pivoted to maritime and aerial capabilities, and he framed Britain's role in supporting Ukraine as one of reinforcement rather than replacement, providing air, sea, water, and sea-based support to supplement Ukraine's existing military strength. And this change in focus aligns with growing international reluctance to commit European troops to Ukrainian territory. Putin has made it clear that he wouldn't tolerate NATO boots on the ground in Ukraine, and the military and logistical complexities of such a deployment are formidable. Even within the so-called coalition of the willing, discussions have increasingly shifted towards naval patrols, aerial surveillance, and intelligence sharing rather than direct troop commitments. But aerial surveillance, what is the point of that? How does aerial surveillance improve on satellite information? And unless you're actually going to get into dogfights. And nobody wants to do that. Starmer's recalibration also reflects a pragmatic response to Trump's potential ceasefire arrangement with Putin, and how far that's actually going to go. Because presumably there's going to be another effort, and Putin is going to be persuaded to at least consider slightly more next time. Slightly more, and then defy it immediately. The UK had originally sought a robust NATO-backed military presence in Ukraine, but Trump's reluctance to guarantee European security leaves this prospect in doubt, and Starmer appears to be hedging against that uncertainty by advocating for alternative forms of military assistance that don't rely on a heavy US backing. Further complicating Britain's role in its post-Brexit standing in European defence cooperation, the European Union's recent £150 billion defence investment scheme notably excludes Britain, creating tension between the UK's ambition to be the leading military power in Europe and its institutional detachment from the EU structures that are now being put in place and now being advanced. Starmer has, however, signalled his intention to negotiate a security pact with the EU, aiming for a partial reintegration into European defence initiatives, which is long overdue. We can't be apart. We are part of the whole, as John Donne said. We can't be a sod on its own. A key question remains, can air and sea support compensate for the lack of ground forces in stabilising Ukraine? Nothing can compensate for a lack of defence. What Ukraine needs is a defensive shield. And as a military analyst, Jack Watling, has said at a recent Royal United Services Institute conference, Russia continues to free up significant reserves of manpower far beyond what any single European state could match in troop deployments. Britain's focus on aerial and maritime support may therefore be a recognition that any post-war security arrangement must work around these numerical disadvantages rather than attempt to match Russian troop levels on the ground. Additionally, Britain's own military industrial complex has a vested interest in pivoting towards air and sea defence. Labour's broader defence strategy includes expanding diplomatic arms manufacturing and increasing defence sector employment, and shipyards such as those in Barrow and Rosyth, as well as aerospace facilities in Lancashire, stand to benefit from increased investment in naval and aerial capabilities. And this move aligns with Starmer's broader economic goals of revitalising British industry while maintaining a leading role in European security. Starmer's shift away from a land-based guarantee reflects both strategic necessity and political pragmatism. With NATO's future uncertain and Europe's security landscape evolving, Britain's best contribution to Ukraine's defence may lie in bolstering its air force and naval power rather than committing troops to the ground. And this approach is an approach to reinforce Ukraine's self-sufficiency while ensuring Britain remains a key player in European defence without overextending its military resources in a politically fraught and militarily uncertain landscape. But I think whatever we do in terms of air and sea power, we need boots on the grounds in Poland and across the Baltic states and up into Finland, and Britain should be playing its part. It's doing this in Estonia. It should be doing it along that border. We need to defend the border.